Guys, what's going on? It's New here. We're back again. 100 maps. We're returning to Rogue Exiles. Titanic Rogue Exiles to be exact. And I'm not going to be Wildwood fishing today, although we'll certainly be on the lookout for some Wildwoods if they happen. I think many of you guys are going to really like this video, especially those of you who don't want to do the Wildwood fishing but want to participate in some of the highest end farms of the league. There's been a lot of them. I mean, this league especially. We've had the Blight, we've had some Breach Risk stuff, we've had Alva, which is really popular, especially solo. But Rogue Exiles still seem to be at the very top tier, don't they? Especially when it comes to group play or like the super high investment. I mean, that's how you kind of know it's the top tier, because that's what the highest investment, the highest restrictive farm is. It's yielding the best results. The big problem with the Titanic Exile farm this time around, it was nerfed, but it still seems to be in the best position, is that it's kind of evolved into this sort of massive blood-filled vessel, you know, stacking a ton of giant exiles and blood-filled vessels and then slamming them into the map with like wisp scarabs and just having an insanely high, well-rolled, you know, originator T16.5 map, let's say, I don't know, 8 mod corrupted legacy bugged all tier 17 mod maps. It's really, really hard to get your hands on that. And unless you're, you know, doing the highest end farm with a group, with a dedicated group or dedicated duo at least, and you got the inside scoop on where to get the blood-filled vessels from, you know, 8, 10, 12 giants at a time, and you got a seller that still has legacy bugged maps. Unless you got all that going for you, it's kind of hard to participate. Oh yeah, and if you have a really, really strong build that can do Titanic Rogue Exiles in general. If you don't have all of that, it can be a problem. Well, the build is still kind of required to do this farm, but as far as everything else, this is going to be a much easier version of the strat. We're going to basically lower the bar down moderately, enough so that you can do it yourself. Do it yourself, bottled Titanic Exiles. I'm going to be running 100 maps today, and some of them are going to be to bottle exiles, and some of them are going to be to run those bottled exiles. The exact ratio, I don't know. But I'm going to be pretty loose with it, okay? I'm not going to be trying to get, you know, 8, 10, 12 bottled Rogue Exiles. I'm going to settle for like 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And then I'm going to just run those maps in the way we're going to talk about. Which I got to get into the video, don't I? And so you can see the dump tab here and kind of get a sense of what's going on. We basically have 2, or I suppose in a certain sense, 3 different kinds of maps we're running. And I'm actually going to have to split this with 2 separate atlases. And we'll talk about that more. I think I'm going to split the highlight section between both atlases, but they'll be linked down in the description below. There's a lot of links in the video description, okay? So let's start off with the atlas. This is, I believe, the same atlas that I used for tier 16 Wildwood Fishing Titanic Rogue Exiles. So this involved a delirium mirror, which was really nice because you could get those pretty expensive simulacrum splinters and delirium orbs. Just kind of before, I basically just ran into the map, maybe went to a ritual to see if it was the nameless ritual, which has the invitation of the king, which is nice when that happens. Pretty rare though. Maybe killed a couple giant exiles. Maybe took a bottled blood-filled vessel. Probably not. Didn't even rush to the boss at that time. Spent very little time in the map. Oh yeah, check the mercenaries inventory, that sort of thing. And basically, I just ran in the map, ran back out. And I also got a delirium orb sometimes at the very end because I'd turn off the deli. So I blocked a few things, forced delirium mirror, and then forced rituals to spawn naturally, and then took the usual stuff. Okay, the quant wheel, increased effect modifiers, maps, a little bit of Scarab stuff because it is kind of good with exiles, just these 2 points here. And some Eater of World Altars. And that's pretty much it, okay? It did block a few things, nothing too crazy going on. Well, just to give you a hint of the next version of the Atlas, basically, in order to run the blood-filled vessels that I accumulate, okay, I don't need to spawn Ritual the hard way. It's just going to automatically spawn with it. And also, I'm going to be running maps that aren't corrupted, because I'm not actually going to run 8 mod corrupted legacy maps, originator maps. I'm going to run my own 6 mod rolled maps, and so I won't need to force the deli mirror. It could run it that way, but I'm actually just going to deli orbit. Okay, so basically I'm going to remove ritual and delirium and then put in shrines and beyond. So beyond will be nice because it'll make the maps a little easier, and it's really good with wisps too. That's kind of elevated the value of beyond when you're running with wisps. And then shrines will be nice because it'll make the maps a lot easier. It'll be easier to complete the rituals, which will be pretty dangerous. But also give me a chance to get Covetous Shrine, which ironically will make it a lot more dangerous, but going to give me that juicy quant rarity alter, that very difficult stat to get nowadays, player quant. And so that's kind of the setup. You can, again, look at the links in the description to see all of that. All right, let's talk about the Scarabs and the maps. We have 5 different Scarabs that are insanely cheap. And then we got a bunch of Toxic Sewer maps. Now, the Toxic Sewer maps are very easy to get. You can just get them off TFT in bulk, or you can farm them up yourself. They're not delirious. They're the really easy versions, and I have a regex listed down below in the description of the YouTube video. And it's the same one that I use in the Wildwood fishing farm. So, I mean, that's still a type of map that I'm going to do. If I score the Wildwood, I will kind of treat it like that. But basically, the maps will be a lot easier than normal anyway, because all we're doing is we're kind of rushing the boss and going to hopefully get a really nice, juicy setup with the giant exiles near a ritual. Hopefully, the ritual spawns the boss room. Maybe I'll get lucky on the way, too. As long as I get at least 2 giants in an area, I'm going to bottle it, okay? I'm going to bottle it up using these ritual vessels here. And so these 5 Scarabs are a nice compromise for trying to, you know, make good on a Wildwood map if it spawns, while also sacrificing a little bit of juice on that end. Like, for example, the Titanic Scarab Legend is what I use instead of Anarchy Scarab. This will spawn more exiles on there. We still have Ruckus maps. We still got, you know, a chance to get 20 additional exiles for that jackpot ritual if they all line up. But, you know, the stars are probably going to line up maybe one time out of the entire farm, where I get like 10 or more giants or something, if that. I don't even know exactly how often that happens, but I will certainly keep an eye out for it. But at any rate, I'm going to be bottling these as few as 2 giants, okay? Because this farm is split 2 different ways, and over here we got the other maps. Now, I don't know exactly what the ratio is going to be as far as bottling maps versus the bottled blood-filled maps, but it's probably going to be somewhere around 50-50. And so I have 2 different setups here. Basically, it depends on whether I get a really good blood-filled vessel with, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 giants, which may not sound good to you if you're only farming the super high and stuff, but keep in mind, we're lowering the bar here. We're making it a little more feasible for the everyday player here to kind of participate in the highest end farms, more or less. And so the really good blood-filled vessels, I use extra well-rolled maps, okay? It's kind of nice when you split things up this way, because you can kind of look at your maps and think, these are the best, you know, 15 maps or whatever that I have. And these are still pretty good, but, you know, we'll use these for the slightly lesser maps, right? And so I got some really well-rolled 6-mod originator maps on Canyon. Could you do this on Toxic Sewer, could do it on Jungle Valley or whatever. Just Canyon's most convenient for me because I'm rolling them for Alva anyway. And the nice thing is that I can, you know, focus on a few different mods on here. Like, I don't need to care about buffs expire faster on this farm, whereas I do with Alva. I don't need to care about, you know, the Fracture mod, Antagonist, Shape or Touch like I would on the Alva farm. Maybe I don't want certain mods on here, like Elder Circles. It's absolutely horrendous on rituals. Awakener Seers patches are especially bad, but I can do those on the Alva map. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of cover my bases on certain map rolls that aren't that great for certain farms, and then maybe a little bit better for other ones. Rarity as a role is better for the Rogue Exile farm than it is for Alva for sure. And especially since I'm just kind of Wildwood fishing Alva at this point, you know, some of my better maps I'll run for the Rogue Exiles, because I at least know I'm going to run it. I'm not just going to, you know, light it on fire like I'm doing on some of the Alva maps. So there are 2 different kind of setups here. It depends on how many Rogue Exiles I get in a bottle. The lesser bottles I'll combine up to 2. And this is inspired by some other members of the community. I don't think there's really any videos on doing a setup like this, but I know, for example, Pro Plays does something like this at a higher level, where he's running like 1 Wisp Scarab and then 2 blood-filled vessels. I think there's usually going to be more exiles in there than this. But again, lowering the bar a little bit, this makes a lot of sense to the more everyday type of higher end player. 2 Wisps on the really good maps, Legend and Titanic. You don't need to run Gigantification or Partnership. You don't get any value out of those. And this is why, you know, things have evolved into this kind of farm. Pack size is a very important role, yeah. Pack size and quant, the most important. Currency still valuable. Rarity still valuable. They don't need to be insanely rolled. They don't necessarily need to be 8-mod legacy maps, okay? And so this is just way more viable for you guys. Investment costs, it's kind of interesting here because there's basically 2 or 3 different maps we're running. Obviously, the ones with the bottled or the blood-filled vessels are going to be more expensive because they're 16.5s, and then we got the cost of the blood-filled vessel itself, which is not super highly inflated, multiple divines per vessel, getting them off of a safe sourced from TFT or something like that. No, we're doing it ourselves. This is the big reason why I'm doing the strat, is because you can actually do all of this yourself instead of paying a huge price and going through the crazy headache of trading for that stuff, which is kind of what is gatekeeping a lot of people like myself even out of doing this strat for real. You can just kind of do it all yourself, and you don't have to pay that extra price. You can obviously trust whatever you're doing because you're the one doing it, and it just costs you a little extra time because you got to run some of the not so exciting maps, do that grunt work to get these. But I still kind of like the idea of doing this grunt work because you might spawn a Wildwood, and when you do, this map's still going to be pretty epic. In fact, I would say a Wildwood on one of these maps is going to be even better than no Wildwood on one of these maps. Should be, if I'm not mistaken, especially because we're not doing some insane number of exiles in these vessels here. Investment cost is 16 chaos per piece on here, which seems wildly low. That's about a 10 to 15 C cost per map, which is kind of the going rate on random or on 8 mod corrupted non-deli maps. You can farm them yourself or buy them in bulk. And the Scarabs. The Scarabs are essentially nothing. They are all less than 1 C a piece, and that is just the state of the economy. These Scarabs are pretty common, and not that many people are running these. Not many people are running the strat. So, I mean, the strat is wide open for the taking in terms of where the economy is at. Unbelievably low. I mean, you guys know the champion Scarab or incursion Scarab champion or whatever is really, really expensive. But it's not actually all that much more rare than gigantification, ironically. It's just that everybody's trying to run Alva and nobody's running this. And so it's really put a hurt on the investment cost for that strat, and that's kind of the case for several other strats too. Well, Titanic Exiles is in very good shape in terms of investment cost. Over here, it's mostly just in the maps and the map rolls. So these are 6 mod rolled 16.5s. Obviously, there's a little bit of cost invested in rolling them. I averaged it down to around 50 chaos per piece, plus 0.4 div per map. And the Scarabs here are dirt cheap, but the vessels are about 18 C a piece. Total investment about 157 C for these and 147 C for these, because a little cheaper because a less vessel, and the Wisps are not that bad. And so, yeah, I mean, just think of it as roughly a divine or a little more for the good maps and almost nothing for the bad maps. It really gets me thinking that perhaps Wildwood fishing Rogue Exiles, I should revisit that because it's so insanely cheap to do that. And it's still pretty good strat. And then we'll get, I guess, the first 20 maps here. So basically, I'm going to do this version of the farm until I have enough blood-filled vessels to set up for all of this. I'll just start lining them up side by side on this stuff here, if that makes sense. And then, I'll just keep a track of how many maps I've done, and then I'll keep track of how many blood-filled vessels I have and maps that are already well set up. And then at some point, I'll hit that threshold where, well, the rest of them, I need to go ahead and switch over to the other strat, and I'll change the atlas. And, we'll show that in the game. And, yeah. Don't think we can do this all in one day. But, anyway, for this version of the strat, we're going to run Anarchy on the map device, because we're still bottling. But for the other version of the strat, we're going to run Domination. Here we go, map number 1. The only hard thing is you kind of have to memorize the range of the ritual. And you might be off a bit, but you can also read the number, of how many unique enemies you have. That doesn't answer everything, because that won't account for... Oh, wow, I think we got a pretty big map here. That will not account for the smaller ones that are in range, but, it'll be decent. This might be a good one here. I wasn't paying that much attention to this, but anyway, it's the first map. Let me do this one here. I think there were 2 giants in here. I could be wrong. We got one there and one there. Yeah, okay, this is 2 giants. 2 giants is good enough. Okay, now there are a lot of Rogue Exiles in here, but there's only actually 2 giants. There's not 2 in there. Wow, we got a box. Interesting. There's nothing there. And then up here we got nothing. Okay, well I've already seen all 4. I don't know, there might have been 3. There's 2 or 3. If there's 4 or more, I'll put it in like the bigger, better one. So that's it, that's a map. I might run through the map to try and find all rituals, but I already saw all 4. And so this is gonna go back in here. We're gonna use dump tabs A and B. And I'll just put it right here, okay? I'll line them up like this, like that, and actually I think I'll move this over here to make this, give it a little more space. And it's pretty simple. I mean, I'm looking forward to a Wildwood spawn. I'm not expecting it, but 8% of the time. And that'll be a special map when we get it. But we just keep running them like this. It's very fast. And yeah, we'll see what the highlights have in store. Nice. Get your Wildwood. I don't even need blood-filled vessels. I already have four divines this map. And a sacred orb. There's a lot of giants in this map. And then every time I come across a ritual zone, there's nothing in there. Brother's Gift? Yo. Alright. Currency div rewards. Yeah, we farm those too. That's a unusually big drop from those cards. Mm-hmm. I'm not even using the Shaper Amulet. Free Divine. He died instantly. Oh yeah, hold on. This looks good up here. Oh, that's gonna be a good one. Holy. Yeah, we be bottling this one. We definitely gonna bottle this one. This is the best one of the day so far. Oh. Yeah, that was a fucking monster, actually. That might have been like 7. Maybe 7. I don't even have shrines right now. There we go. 1 Wisp Scarab carries. I mean, I'd get tired of doing this too if I was playing a tanky character that like, where you have to like get survivability to handle them. Currency Duke kicking in, I guess. Cool. Never been a big believer in 1 Wisp Scarab strats. Ha! Tier 0. Must have been infused with 2,000 purple. Oh wow. Actual loot. Whoa. Whoa. That guy had to have 4,000 blue on him. Whoa. Whoa. So who here thought that this was going to be a hard strat to do? Okay. That's different. Might be that % more currency multiplier though. Is that more currency or a wisp? I got like no good shrines. It'll be a hard one. Especially if you're shroud walking everywhere. Oh my god. That was pretty amazing how they all spawn in the right same place. It's not gonna happen again though. It's a juicer. Whoa. Oh, I got one quad altar, okay. Why'd they actually all spawn in the corner there? I didn't expect that. Dude, I missed like the most important one. The resistance shrine. Oh, I already had it though. What? Wow, these spawned so far apart. The knockback shrine's kind of bad. Alright, first look. The aftermath of honor maps. What am I looking at? One dump tab. It all fits in there. A lot of uniques. Maybe more uniques than I thought. Wasn't even really prioritizing uniques in a major way, but as I understand it is more attuned for uniques farming. Still had a little bit of rarity on gear. The flask suffix basically. One tier 0 Soul Taker, only one. A couple of jewels in there, Storm Shroud, Unnatural Instinct. 29 Divine Orbs, 23 Puzzle Boxes, more Exalts and Divines, no locks, no mirrors, 3 Sacred Orbs. 3 Sacred Orbs are down here. This number up here says 142 right now. Do have a lot of Delirium Orbs, which are going to be dramatically undervalued, as well as some other things. I think I can definitely milk some more currency out of this number with a minimal amount of liquidating. About 5.5 hours to do this farm. It's very fast, very low investment. I really don't know. Like, the feeling I get is that it didn't turn out as good as I hoped. Obviously, you know, didn't even get lock or mirror, but yeah, even some of the big juicy maps. Maybe a little lackluster, but I need to see the results on this to give my verdict on it. So we gotta get that set up for a gambling session, and definitely gonna have some uniques to corrupt. I didn't level any gems. I don't think I got any quality bases either, which is kind of surprising, disappointing. Well, I did. Yeah, maybe I did. The Warlock Gloves. I suppose that's a pretty good one. What do we have here? Conquest Lamar. Well, give me a second. We'll get things figured out. Alright guys, we got the results. And real quick, here's the dump tab of everything clean. We're going to gamble a lot of the stuff. This is to be dusted. Here's the originator maps. We have one good quality base right here. And we'll be corrupting all of these. One tier 0, here it is. And here's just the other dump tab after liquidating. Just pretty quick, getting a lot of the really obvious things out of the way, especially like Delirium Orbs. Let's take a look again at Wealthy Exile, and we got this stuff over here. The originator maps are right here. The value, this is 0.4 div per random or 0.6 div per Jungle Valley. Even inside the random, there was like Toxic Sewer, maybe a few that were worth more. But yeah, that's just kind of getting that out of the way. The Warlock Gloves are 15 or 16, 17 Divines pre-split, and yeah, they're like 5 or 6. I think there were 6 split 3 ways, so that's what this is here for. The Conquest Lamar would have been good, but I failed the recombination. Kind of needed to recombinate up to eye level 86 and failed. So we were missing like a solid 20 or 30 div for that reason. Oh well. Mirror and lock normalized. This is 3 sacred orbs worth of locks and mirrors estimated. Again, 1 to 3 to 24 ratio. So take 3 divided by 8 times the value of locks plus 3 divided by 24 times the value of mirrors. They're worth a lot right now. So that's how a whopping 236 divines showed up there. So we'll add that in at the end. 71 maps worth of bottling maps at 16C a piece. This is the total number here, part of the investment cost. 19 maps worth of double blood-filled vessel maps. 10 maps worth of single blood-filled vessel maps. We'll just add these chaos numbers. And we arrive at the total investment cost, 39.9 divines. Gross is this number up here, 159, plus these numbers up here. And that is going to be 190.6 divines. Net profit, 150.7 divines. Divine per map, 1.5. Divines per hour, 27.4. That's 5.5 hours of farming from me. The maps went fairly smooth, so didn't really have too much trouble. I was actually pleasantly surprised how fast they are. Bottled or blood-filled maps. And yeah, the number seems a bit low, though. I will say the numbers definitely seem a bit low. I'm reminded this is a lock and mirror farm, as well as it's kind of a tier 0 farm, and I only got 1 tier 0, no locks and no mirrors, and the tier 0 was not valuable. So very much on the low end of RNG, but the sample size is fairly small, being like a total of, 29 blood-filled maps. Normalized, though, with the help of estimating the value of locks and mirrors added, not mage bloods, though. I feel like this one you're kind of cutting yourself short if you're not like factoring in higher value tier 0s whatsoever. But I wasn't running like a rarity character, so I'm not going to do that. Kind of harder to do that anyway. We have a normalized rate of 3.87 divines per map, or 70 divines per hour. That number comes out way higher, doesn't it? Way higher. And this strat, I mean, you just ask around. This strat gives a lot of locks and mirrors, although maybe not so much with the lowering of the bar. So, but that is what I came out to. Yeah, big juxtaposition here between the div per hour on what I actually made and the normalized. Again, I'm not going to take up too much qualms about this. I'm not really sure what I'm going to list it in the title of the video. I chalk it up to just a lack of sample size, but I didn't want to do like a huge sample size on this farm. Just kind of wanted to get some sense for it, and hopefully this helps you get a little bit of a sense of where it's at. Well, now it's time for the gamble. With the gamble, we'll do what we usually do and start with stacked decks. I'm not feeling like I'm getting much RNG out of this league. Yeah, that's not some very good cards, but that's okay. Moving on to the better part of the gambling session, I would say. Don't have any jewels to do, though. Or gems, I mean. Oh, we do have some jewels. All the things on the left here. Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Alright, let me hit them. Hit him up. All of these have some decent potential, I think. Some more than others. Burning damage. No. Dex in. No. Right? Yeah. Block spell damage. Not really. Max life? Max life? Ralakash impatient? Speaking of impatience, my app is being impatient. Ah, alright. This is maybe a couple divines, I guess. Come on, where's the wrath? Gotta get a wrath, man. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Malevolence. Malevolence. A tiny bit of value. AoE Aegis Aurora. Alright. Hey, let's go. That's actually fairly well rolled. Yeah, a couple divines, I think, for this one. Max Power Charge Heretic. A few divines. Although I've never sold one like this. I don't know. That'd be all. Oh, I've just bricked all of the jewels. Okay. Yeah, not terrible, not good, though. Alright, well, I mean, that's it, I guess. That's all we got. Basically no good cards and a couple of mediocre thing. I don't know. This is suggesting it's like 4 div. Maybe it's not terrible. Speaking of not terrible, this farm. Not terrible. I don't think it's that great. I was pleased at the Bow Warden's ability to do this. I think this is kind of the last benchmark of a Bow Warden's capability. I will tell you, a couple of maps gave me a little bit of trouble. We didn't get through all of this farm completely unscathed without losing a single Rogue Exile. There were a couple, I think 2 maps where I lost like a couple rituals because of something. Usually it was Drowning Orb, but yeah, at least one time I got wrecked by a Rogue Exile. But in most cases, you know, you saw the highlights. You can tell what's happening there. Like the Rogue Exile spawn, the first thing they got to do is Delirium Animation. Within that time span, they're all getting frozen. They're all getting hard frozen. They're permanently frozen until they're dead. In most cases. In some cases, maybe they're spawning really spread out or something, and something happens where I can't, you know, hit them all at once. But most of the time, they're really not getting a single attack off. And that probably surprised some of you that were able to just, you know, get by that way. And they die really fast, especially if they spawn on top of each other. I was sure to include a couple highlights of that, of them getting utterly annihilated. Double Wisp didn't matter. Unfortunately, we didn't get to try a super high Wildwood, one of those that might have painted a different picture, and, you know, there wasn't like 12 Rogue Exiles per ritual, so that would have caused some lag and maybe caused some problems. But the point is, didn't have to go tanky, could go with this build and just absolutely annihilate them. I was quite pleased with that. And the maps were not super easy rolled, okay? I mean, some of them, I had to make sure they had really high quant and pack size, so I had to settle with some dangerous modifiers in there. A lot of Shaper Touch, the Awakener patches. There were even some AoE maps, which kind of give me some pause. I mean, there were some things I absolutely red flagged, like no damage 3 seconds out of 10. And you can probably understand that. But yeah, most of the mods were on the table there for this farm, and so yeah, I was pretty happy with the performance side of things. I'm not really expecting a lock or mirror with 3 Sacred Orbs worth of stuff. I was hoping maybe 1 lock. A little disappointing, but again, I mentioned earlier, I didn't do the sample size necessary to really get down to brass tacks on this farm, and that's why I leave it to you guys to do it if you want. You got a long time left, I guess, for this season or the league until it's over. As for me, as we conclude the video, I've already alluded to this in the previous one, getting back into the mindset of PoE 2. Still got a few more PoE 1 videos coming out, but they're going to be sort of finale things, not going to be farm related. I think this is the last farm, big farming video that I'm going to come out with. How many farming videos did I do this league anyway? I think I gave you guys plenty. But now you got something to chew on with Rogue Exiles. Bottling them yourself. The do-it-yourself bottled Rogue Exile is definitely a real farm, and it's something to look into on the super high end. Maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't say this build is tailor-made for that farm, but it's certainly capable, and you could go with a more tanky build if you want. But yeah, this video is basically done. We're out of here. The farm is okay. I made decent currency. I still got a mirror and a lock left over. I think I'm just going to take them to standard. The build done. I'm not really sure if I'm going to come out with any sort of final build showcase. I actually don't think I'm going to. You know, we're just kind of exiting into PoE 2 at this point. So I did have the first look at Tornado Shot swap, but you know, you guys got to see this build grow and perform, grow in its performance over time. And yeah, in the very end, I mean, it packs a crazy punch. Yeah, we looked at it at certain stages too with like the mercenary setup, still using the same merc setup. And so, yeah, I'm basically retiring the build, I think. Very, very pleased with how it turned out. Yeah, hopefully maybe we'll do something a little different next league now that this is the second time I've ran this build and got it refined really nicely. I just want to change this flat lightning roll since I have percent gain is extra lightning. Anyway, that's it for the build. That's it for the farm. And that's it for the league, basically. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments section. There's probably a lot of things I didn't talk about with the farm. But that's all I can think of off the top of my head. Those are the final thoughts. That's it. And yeah, thank you guys for watching all throughout this league. And for this video, of course. We'll see you in the next one.